Welcome back again to the Girls and Women in Sport virtual series presented by the Canadian Sports Centre Manitoba and Fit Women and Girls. As you know, today we will be discussing careers in sport. So there are so many fun and exciting careers that exist in sport, from coaching to administration, broadcasting, dietetics, psychology, and so much more. I know I'm personally very fortunate to work in such an amazing industry and be surrounded by so many inspiring women. Now today we are going to be hearing from two successful women and role models from a couple different fields. So today we have Leah Hextall and Venla Hovi. In 2020, Leah made history as the first woman to call play-by-play for an NHL game on Sportsnet. The landmark broadcast received national acclaim for Leah and the network, as the game was called by an all-female broadcast team. Leah has also made history a year prior as the first woman to call play-by-play for men's NCAA Division I hockey tournament for ESPN. Leah has been described as a trailblazer, and over the past 17 years has been an on-air presence for the largest networks in North America. Now, Venla is a head coach for the female U17 prep team at Okanagan Hockey Academy. She formerly worked as an on-ice instructor for the Jets hockey development and was the assistant coach for the University of Manitoba Bisons in Winnipeg. She is a three-time ice hockey Olympian with Team Finland and a two-time Olympic bronze medalist, and those are just a few of her playing accomplishments. Venla has gained experience coaching players of all ages and skill levels, both female and male players. Venla is also the founder and director of VH Hockey, which is a training platform for athletes, including hockey camps and future mentorship program. Now we're going to get right into this. Leah is going to start us off today with a presentation. So we will be taking questions more at the end. If you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat function or the Q&A. But like I said, we'll wait until both Venla and Leah have spoken. Go ahead, Leah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jessie. And I'm just thrilled to be here today to the Girls and Women in Sport virtual series alongside Venla. And I will say this, is that I had the pleasure of calling Venla Hovi as she won a Clarkson Cup with the Calgary Inferno as in the Canadian Women's Hockey League. And she's a champion at all levels. So I'm thrilled to be here today with her and the Canadian Sports Centre Manitoba. And a special thank to Andrea Katz of Fit Women and Girls for involving me in this. And I have to say, as Jessie mentioned, I have spent the last, nearly 2 decades now, I'm going to start aging myself right off the top here, getting paid to talk about sports for a living.
We welcome you to our Hockey Central studios. I am Leah Hextall.
At 22 years of age, you come from the same school of hockey as those guys. Speed and skill rule the day. How do you shut down Team North America?
But you got a little guy at home named Louis. He's almost 4 years of age. His favorite teams are your Winnipeg Jets, which you're the captain of, and also Team USA. What did he have to say to Dad?
Well, he gets the USA-Canada thing, which is kind of scary, so had some choice words about that game, but...
Are you battling Brent Burns for the best beard right now?
I got a better one.
All right, good. Thanks, Joe.
Okay.
Great to have you along, and welcome in to Hockey Night in Canada. A little matinee action. Louis DeBrusk, Corey Hirsch, I'm David Amber. We're going to get you right out to the Consol Energy Center, where Leah Hextall is standing by and ready to set the scene. Leah.
David, for a really long time in Winnipeg, it was Ladd, Little, and Wheeler, but that is no more as the Winnipeg Jets traded their captain, Andrew Ladd, to the Chicago.
So a little bit of taste there of my very tough life as I've been receiving a paycheck and haven't paid to see a sport event for nearly 20 years. But what a ride it has been. And I started my career right here in Manitoba in 2003 at CKX Television. And since that time, I've managed to work my way on to some of the biggest networks in North America, here in Canada, whether it's TSN, Sportsnet, Hockey Night in Canada, and then south of the border in the United States, the New England Sports Network in Boston, covering the Red Sox, Bruins, and Tom Brady and those Patriots, well, up until recently, and then also ESPN. So it has been quite the ride. But the fact of the matter is that when I walked through the door of CKX nearly 20 years ago, the idea of calling play-by-play in the NHL, it didn't exist. It didn't exist in my career path. It didn't exist in women's career path, because it just didn't exist. It had not happened yet. The good news is, as of March 8th, 2020, the same cannot be said, because alongside two-time Olympic gold medalist Cassie Campbell-Pascal, who is the truest trailblazer that I know, I had a chance to become the first woman to call a nationally televised NHL game on a broadcast. And with that, it made a moment in history. But that being said, that moment did not have a clear path to it. The fact of the matter was, when I started my career in my hometown of Brandon at CKX, the goal was always to work for Hockey Night in Canada. That was it, the most iconic brand. And in 2014, that goal was achieved. I was working down in Boston at Nesson, an incredible network, an incredible sports market. But Sportsnet signed a historic $5.2 billion deal to be the home of the NHL. Whoops. Did that just go away for everybody as well? Sorry, here, just 1 second. Hi, Jesse, can you still see my screen? I'm sorry, I've got an update coming on my computer right now.
It's just white, but I can see it.
Okay, so just give me 1 second, everybody here. I apologize about this. There we go, we're back in action. I apologize. So I had signed this historic deal, and they had offered me a position, and they were also taking over the Hockey Night in Canada brand. So with that being said, the dream was accomplished. I was going to join the biggest names in broadcast and get to go cover a sport back in my home country. But just 2 years after it was achieved, it was dashed on June 21st, 2016. I will never forget the date as long as I live. I received a phone call from the top executive for Sportsnet when it came to the NHL to inform me that my services were no longer needed. Because of economics and the fact that our broadcast industry was suffering financially, Sportsnet was forced to lay off 50% of its hockey staff because it was reducing its programming by 50%. I sat there, and the words that came out of my mouth was, "Thank you for the opportunity." And you think to yourself, how do you thank somebody as they are blowing up your world? But the fact is, I knew then, and I know even more now, that it's not personal, it's business. And the way I handled myself in that moment was probably the most important thing I did in my career because of what was to come. But the thing was is that things, well, they got worse before they got better. And in my opinion, they got much worse. So after I got laid off, the off season came about, and I had to start looking for a job. I needed one. I was an unemployed sports broadcaster. And as I mentioned, the industry was suffering, but there were a handful of jobs available. This was the time when the Vegas Golden Knights were coming into the league, so there was a trickle effect. So there was about 5 jobs that were open to someone of my ability in a host or a rinkside reporter role. And I was really fortunate. Those 2 years at Hockey Night in Canada had really put me on the map. So I was interviewing and auditioning for all of them. So knowing this and knowing that all the jobs were located in the United States, I did what any single girl on one income does. She gives up her place in Toronto, she puts her stuff in storage, and I decided I would just tell the movers when I got a job out of those 5 opportunities, and I'd be moving back down to the States. I went home to visit my friends and family, and I was staying with my mom in Brandon. And over the next few weeks, as I was waiting for those jobs, the same call from my agent kept coming. You're credible, they love you, you're talented, but they're going in a different direction. Again and again and again. And as I mentioned, the economy in our business was bad. It still is to this day. And those who they were choosing over me in these roles that I had been up for were often less experienced than me. And as we know, with less experience often comes a lesser salary. And my agent identified to me that this wasn't just happening to me in the business, it was happening across the business, that my experience was actually hurting me in this process instead of helping me in the roles that I had traditionally been in. So here I was, a week out from the puck dropping on the NHL season, and I didn't have a job. But then the phone call from my agent. And this time, he was telling me that Fox Sports had called. The Anaheim Ducks needed a rinkside reporter. So, excellent news. Got on the phone with the head executive there, and he said, "Leah, I've been a fan of you. I'm not trying to interview you. The job is yours. Do you want it?" I said yes. We were under a time crunch, so we started off. I was talking to HR. We were talking about my visa. We were going through the paperwork. I was looking for a place to live. And I was so confident about this that I started to tell my inner circle. And then the phone rang. And it was my agent. And he said, "Leah, you're credible, you're talented, they love you, but they're going in a different direction." This time around, that direction was not even having the position in order to save money. So there it was. I was out of options. The season was starting. There were no opportunities left, and I was not going to have a job. I remember I was in Brandon and I walked into the room I was staying in at my mom's, and I just shut the door and I leaned back against it and I just dropped. I just dropped right down to the ground, and it finally started. Tears. And they came and they came and they came and they didn't stop. For so long, I'd had this little voice inside of me that had told me, I'm going to be okay. You've worked too hard. It's going to all work out. And in this moment, that voice inside me was saying, Leah, stop crying. Get off the floor. Leah, stop crying. Get off the floor. But the fact of the matter in this moment was I could not stop crying. I could not get off the floor because I had the weight on my shoulders of the one thing that I feared the most. I'd failed. I'd failed. I was unemployed. I could not get a job. After all of that and everything I had sacrificed, moving to different countries, missing weddings, missing Christmases, missing time away from my family and friends, I was a failure. I finally did get off the floor and I managed to crawl into bed and I went to sleep. And as they say, tomorrow is another day. And on this day, I decided to do the thing I hate doing more than anything, and that's asking for help. But what I realize now about that is that asking for help is your ultimate power move. See, over nearly 2 decades in the industry, I had cultivated a professional network that had influence and that were willing to speak on my behalf about me and about my skill set. And that showed my influence as a professional over them. And when I went and asked that network for help, the answer was, of course, what do you need? But I didn't have an answer to the question, because if I'm not a sports broadcaster, then who am I? I mean, I had spent my entire adult life talking sports for a living. And the fact is, do I have any other skill? Well, of course I do. Of course I do. We all do. And so often we are defined by titles or what we do, and we put ourselves into a box. And we don't realize that we have all of these transferable skills that can go in so many different directions. Because the fact is that all my years doing this, well, it led me to this. I was 38, I didn't have a job, and I had to go get one. And I utilized that network to go to this building, the Manitoba Legislative, where a member of my network resides in the Premier of Manitoba. I reached out to him and I took a meeting. And I told him that there was a gap in his communication strategy. And then I told him what I can do to help him. And along with his chief of staff, they gave me a job. They created a position for me because I asked for it. I identified to them what worth I could bring to them. And very quickly, that turned into me pioneering a brand new digital strategy department for them. It turned into me being a director, to hiring people, to having staff, to utilizing all those transferable skills from all those years of broadcasting, but then doing something different in politics, which I knew nothing about, but I had to learn. And then gaining all these new skill sets in management and communication and things that I didn't have prior to turn myself into a completely different professional. But here's the thing. It wouldn't have happened if I didn't ask for it, if I didn't go in and create that opportunity. And with that newfound confidence of being able to do that in the real world, as I call it, I turned back to my love, and my love will always be broadcasting. And with that, I knew that I was going to have to reinvent myself, because as we found out, as much as networks love me and they think I'm fantastic, they also love to say no to me in those traditional roles as a host and a ringside reporter. I knew that the industry had changed. In fact, if I'm going to be really real about it, it wasn't just my experience. I was starting to age out. And that is something that happens in the world to females in sports broadcasting. Think about it for a second. How many women over 50 do you see on television? And I was starting to climb into that direction. So I knew I had to reinvent myself. And I thought to myself, if I never broadcast again, well, what will I regret? Well, Venla's been there before, so she understands how special it is, but in Olympic Games. I've never had a chance to cover an Olympic Games, and it is something that I definitely want to check off before I end my career. But the Olympics are a hard one because everybody wants to do them. There's only 2 networks in North America, in CBC and NBC, that do so, and they have the cream of the crop. So what can I do in order to get that opportunity? Well, I started to think about women's hockey. And isn't it about time that a female voice calls the female game? And with that, that's what I decided. I'm going to go into play-by-play. And I don't say that off the cuff because it is truly the hardest thing a broadcaster can do. I'm a very big believer in mentors. So when I decided to pivot into play-by-play, I went after the best. Just recently retired from NBC Sports, Mike Doc Emmerich. He is the voice for NBC Sports of the NHL. He has covered multiple Olympics. He's a Hall of Fame broadcaster. He has done it all. And once again, going back and utilizing that network, asking for help to connect with him, I did. And he was kind enough to take my phone call. We spoke for about 20 minutes about everything except for hockey. And then by the end of it, he said, Leah, I know about your resume, and I can tell by the way you talk that you can do this. You're going to have to take a page from me and do exactly what I did when I started 50-some years ago. Get into a rank at a junior game or wherever you can, and just start calling. So when Doc talks, you listen, and that's exactly what I did. I started going to Manitoba Moose games, the American Hockey League affiliate of the Winnipeg Jets, and I took out my phone, plugged in my headset, put it on, and I was the crazy lady talking to herself, calling the game at Manitoba Moose games. And people looking at me like, what are you doing, child? But there I was, recording myself and just doing it. I was awful. I was so bad. But when I listened to it back and I kept doing it, I could see myself starting to progress a little bit. And more than anything, it challenged me. It challenged me like nothing has ever challenged me before within my career. And I thought to myself, this is it. I want to do this. So remember when I didn't take that grenade and throw it up when I got laid off from Sportsnet? Well, that moment came back, and it came back in a very big way, because I picked up the phone and I called that same executive that laid me off. And I said to him, listen, Canadian Women's Hockey League, you guys air 4 games. It's time for a female voice to start calling the female game. And he said, Leah, you're right, it is. Let's do it. So in January of 2018, I made my play-by-play debut in the Canadian Women's Hockey League, and I'm very proud of that. I've never been so nervous in my life. I wanted to throw up. I'm not certain I didn't throw up, and I just held it in, as gross as that sounds, but that is the fact. I was so nervous, and I stood beside 2-time Olympic gold medalist, my partner in crime, Cassie Campbell-Pascal, and she got me through it, and she held my hand, and she told me to believe that I belong, and I will never forget those words because they have been so influential in everything I've done since that moment. But we got through it, and most of all, I just proved I could do it, not just to those outside, but to myself. And I could see progression. I went on to call 2 more CWHL games before I got the chance to call a Clarkson Cup, and that is the championship game for the league. And there are so many play-by-play broadcasters that never get a chance to call a championship game. So to do so on my 4th game, well, I felt very privileged, and we made some history in the moment.
Nicole Costa. Overside, takes the shot and scores! Laura Station with the overtime winner for Markham. Go get it, girls. It's your first Clarkson Cup for the Markham Thunder 3 times. Does prove to be the charm here in overtime.
That was Hextall's call of Markham's OT winner that earned them the franchise's first Clarkson Cup. It was shown nationally on Sportsnet, along with the 3 other Canadian Women's Hockey League games she called earlier in the season. It was also groundbreaking in that it was the first all-female broadcast trio to cover such an event. Play-by-play is not a gig women have felt they could dive into seriously until now.
So that was that season, and the next season I earned the right to do it again. So I called another full year of the Canadian Women's Hockey League, and from there I was starting to get noticed by a little network known as ESPN. And they called me up, and they made me an offer, and I became the first woman to call the men's NCAA Division I hockey tournament. Momentum was starting. I was getting better, not that much better, but I was getting better, and I was working hard, and people were starting to notice. And more than that, they were starting to notice the difference in the voice, that it was time for new voices within the hockey culture. So from there, my mentor, Doc Emmerich, well, he kept talking about me. And when you have someone who is that accredited and that beloved and that respected, telling a national publication that he thinks you're going to be the first woman to call NHL play-by-play full-time, people sit up and they notice. Things were going very well for me, and you could feel the momentum going, which inspired me to continue to keep putting in the work. Unfortunately, what happened next was the Canadian Women's Hockey League, for the greater good of the game, was forced to fold. And with that, those 4 games that meant the world to me, well, they disappeared off my schedule. So when the 2019-2020 season started, I didn't have an assignment. I didn't have a single game on my schedule because there was nothing available out there to me at this point in my play-by-play career. So I had to go back to the basics. Started my career in Brandon, as I mentioned, and one of the first leagues I covered was the Manitoba Junior Hockey League, and I still have very strong relationships with them today. I reached out to the commissioner, Kim Davis, and Deputy Commissioner Kevin Surratt. They were very supportive of the idea of me working with them to come call games on their streaming service, and that's exactly what I did. It started with their showcase weekend, which was 4 games at the very beginning of the season. And in that time, I met the gentleman in this picture who provided color for me at the showcase weekend, and that's Dave Anthony. And I single out Dave Anthony because how important it is for us to have male allies. Because Dave said to me after the showcase weekend, Leah, I see what you're trying to do here, and you're gonna do it. So I'm the voice of the Steinbach Pistons, and anytime you want to come to Steinbach, I will step aside for you and I will provide color so that you have the chance to call. It does not get better than that, because those games, those reps were so pivotal in what was to come. Because in very early December, I got a very early Christmas gift. My phone rang. I was sitting at my real job in the government, and I picked it up, and it was the executive producer of Hometown Hockey, Allison Redmond. And she said, Leah, March 8th, are you booked? Because we got a game for you. Finally, a real game on television on my schedule. Awesome. I said, Allie, I'm in. What is it? She said, well, you're going to be in Calgary, and guess what? It's on International Women's Day. We're going to have a full broadcast crew. Cassie's going to provide color. And I thought, great. In my head, I'm thinking, Calgary Hitmen, junior game. This is awesome. And then she goes, so it will be Calgary hosting Vegas. And you could hear the record screech go through my brain. Because I went, oh, so this is an NHL game. And she said, yes, Leah, you are going to be the first woman on national television to call an NHL game. The joy I felt was unbelievable. It was completely followed by fear and anxiety for probably the next 6 months, but or 3 months, it didn't really matter. But either way, in that moment, hearing that I was going to get a chance to call an NHL game, and not only that, I was going to get to do it standing beside Cassie Campbell, and Christine Simpson joined us ringside, and then to have an entire female production crew representing what they do on a day in and day out basis in the sport of hockey, and I was going to be the only rookie. Well, there was only one decision to make. Was I brave enough to suck at something new? And here's the answer.
As we celebrate International Women's Day, it's the first time in Sportsnet's history that 3 on-air women will be giving you an NHL broadcast. We sure hope it's a sign of things to come.
Here comes Reeves, takes the shot. There's the rebound, and Brent Nosek scores! Nosek makes it 1-0 for the visitors.
Watch Reeves kind of takes out the defender, which just opens it up for Nosek.
Carlson now sends it right out to Pacioretty, and he scores! And the Vegas Golden Knights are ahead 3-0.
I mean, what a play by William Karlsson. Pacioretty has a wide open net.
Lucci's on the move. 2-on-1 developing for the Flames. Lucci's holds fire. He scores! Milan Lucic with the ball, and the home team's on the board. Backlund works his way inside the line. Sends it across. Here's Dubé. Dubé shoots and scores! Double D with the power play goal.
The Flames right back in this one.
Here comes Mangiapane. Mangiapane. Oh, there's the goal! Matthew Tkachuk has tied this game. It is now 3-3.
Theodore thinks about it.
And is it in? Is it in? It looked in from an angle shot.
Shea Theodore, you can see, just puts it on net, and it just elevates off Andrew Mangiapane's stick, and just bad luck.
All right, well, there you have it from Calgary. The Flames dropped this one by a score of 5-3. I have to say thank you to Miss Cassie Campbell for getting me through my first NHL call. Are you going to talk?
I want to say one thing. Your late father, Randy Hextall, is so proud of you tonight, my friend. Back to you guys.
It was quite the moment, and it's something that I will never forget. And in the words of the Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, it was the first, I was the first, I will not be the last, because one, I will not let that happen. We will continue on. And the thing about this whole experience was that I can't even say it was a dream come true, because growing up as a little girl, not even as a little girl, but as a woman, and the majority of my career until I was 40 years of age, I didn't even realize that this was possible, because no women, no one who sounded like me, looked like me, was doing this. And that's why representation matters. It matters because there are now little girls and women who have heard a female call an NHL game. There are little boys and there are men who have heard a female and females call an NHL game. We have to continue to push for that progress, because it will come. But we need those male allies, like I've showcased throughout this presentation, to continue to help us by opening the door and supporting us in our opportunities, as there are so many qualified women in sports, not just on air, but behind the bench, trainers, general managers. There's breeding grounds where these women are learning, but they need more opportunity in order to get those positions. You know, it's interesting, because I realize, and it's not lost on me, I did not ask for those opportunities all along the way. Since I was laid off in 2016, the one thing I have learned more than anything is that you do not wait for your opportunity. You create your opportunity by asking for your opportunity. The worst they can say is no. And all it takes is one yes. And that's about it for me, Jesse. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm thankful for being here today, and I hope that I've shared something that you can take away from this presentation. And I managed to get through, Jesse, with only one technical glitch. So aren't you proud of me?
Extremely proud.
I know, and now I gotta stop sharing my screen if I can figure out how to do this. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing that. Venla, I will put it right over to you now, and we'll keep going.
Okay, working?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Leah. You set the bar pretty high for me. Every time I do these presentations, I say this is out of my comfort zone. I don't like speaking in front of people, so hats off for you, what you've been able to do with your career. I think it's incredible, and it's funny to look back on my last year of hockey and playing in the Clarkson Cup final. And funny enough, a memory that popped into my mind, I was actually warming up for that game, and I saw, obviously, you were part of the podcasting team, and I was thinking to myself, I was nervous before the game, but I was like, thank God I'm going on the ice and not on TV having to podcast this, and it actually made me feel better. So just a fun fact about how our paths kind of crossed along the way as well. Okay, thank you for having me. Like I said, a great honor to get to share my story, and this is incredibly important to have conversations within the female groups, as well as including men as well, to hear our stories, and yeah, super excited to get to share this stuff with all of you. So a little bit about myself here. It's just my notes so that I remember. So name is Venla Hovi. I'm a 33-year-old hockey coach. I live in Penticton currently. Sometimes it's hard to even remember where I am, because I have moved so much for hockey, not just for when I played hockey, but also for coaching. It's really weird to think that I'm here right now in Penticton. I still walk around sometimes in town, and I'm like, is this my home now? Because I really don't know where my home is anymore. But yeah, so I coach at the Okanagan Hockey Academy, U17 female team. This is my first year as a head coach. Played hockey for 27 years, and this is my second year now outside of being an athlete, and I'm definitely, I feel like a rookie every day going to work. People think that, oh, this must be easy for you. You played hockey for so long, but that's definitely not the case. The coaching world is so different, and you kind of have to shift the role of, now I'm trying to look at myself, how I was as a player, from an outsider's perspective, to be able to coach these girls as well as I can on a daily basis. And it's definitely a learning process, and obviously super happy to have the people I do have at the academy helping me out every day, to become a better coach and get to know myself better too as a coach, which is still kind of an unknown thing every weekly. Yeah, like they mentioned, VH hockey is something I started. Actually, last summer was my first ever own hockey camp. It was a dream of mine for a while, to bring something back home to Finland. Like I live in Canada now, but every summer when I go back home in Finland, I started getting chirps from my friend that, Venla, you need to start doing some coaching over here too. Don't just give it to the Canadians. You need to bring it back home. So I started VH hockey. So right now I just run hockey camps and hoping to run another one this upcoming summer back home. Obviously, depending on where this world is going with COVID, but hopes are up that I get to run my second camp. And it's been really rewarding so far, giving back to where I come from, giving back to younger players over there. And my hockey camp was actually the first camp in Finland that it was for boys and girls, run by a female coach, because I had a lot of people saying, well, run a hockey camp for girls, but sure, but why wouldn't I open up the doors for guys as well? So I got 5 guys in camp, even though people told me I wouldn't get any. And the boys came and they loved it. They were the minority of the camp, which is unheard of in the hockey world. It was super fun. And yeah, former Jets hockey development on ice instructor, and I also worked for the Manitoba Bisons. That year with the Jets hockey development was the first year outside of my athletic career, kind of coming into the working life, and learned lots working for them. Was very grateful for the opportunity, and was not thinking of leaving that position as soon as I did. But once this door opened up for me to be a head coach, as scared as I was, I just needed to grab onto the opportunity. But just wanted to mention them that I was really grateful for time with them. Played for Team Finland since 2007, so I think that equals somewhere around 13 years that I played for the national team. I also played for U Sports for 3 years with the Bisons in Winnipeg, and played a year in the NCAA, and before that grew up playing for the Finnish National Women's Hockey League. And so I'm from Finland, in Penticton. Here are some great pictures from growing up, how it all started for me. Not happy about those bangs in that other picture. So always fun to look back, how players look back then, because now the little kids, if I ever go on the ice with younger kids, they have the nicest hockey gear. Their sticks are more expensive than any of my gear was back then, that I just got from my older brother every time that they were too small for him. But I started playing when I was 4 years old, started skating when I was 2 years old. I got figure skates from my parents for Christmas. I skated once with them and apparently threw them in the snowbank and screamed and said that I want the same skates as my brother. So that's how it all started. I fell in love with the speed of hockey. I fell in love with the competitive side of it. I was a very active young girl, very competitive. My brother was 3 years older and always wanting to be better than him. So I think it was just natural for me to start playing hockey along with other sports that I did. I don't think I would have started playing if it wasn't for my brother. I think that's probably the story of many female hockey players, is they had an older brother who played, because there were no parents who would suggest to a young girl back in early 90s that you should probably start playing hockey. So lucky enough, my brother played, and I wanted to do the same. I have some papers from my daycare back in the day, and all of them say that my goal in life is to play in the NHL. And I didn't know any better. I didn't know any other female players. I didn't really think that I was any different than the boys. That's just how it was back then. And all my idols from hockey were men. I looked up to players like Teemu Selänne, Timo Solani, as you would say, Saku Koivu, who was the captain for the Montreal Canadiens. Other male players, again, didn't know a single female player that I could have looked up to. That was just kind of how it was. And I think my parents too were kind of ignorant to the fact that there were female players, but I don't think they knew any better than I did. So I was always just exposed to the fact that NHL is the thing where you should shoot for, and that was my dream from as far as I remember. I played on boys teams till I was a teenager. They were my best friends. I honestly have only good memories about my teammates, about the boys. Things started to get awkward when you're 13, 14, and not so much from the player's perspective. It all came from the parents, unfortunately, kind of creating that separation of, oh, you're different, you need to go dress in this tiny little bathroom by yourself. And those are just some of the things that a lot of people don't think about, that everyday life for me going to practice was different than for the boys. And as soon as that separation happens, that's when you start to realize that I am different. I'm not like them. Some people don't like just even seeing me at the rink. And obviously for someone who's 13 or 14 years old and trying to figure themselves out, and then you start to wonder, I'm different and I'm not as good. It's not a fun feeling to go through at that age. What led me to where I am today? There's so many reasons. I think I could have made this list a lot longer. So now as a coach, I think it's simply my passion for hockey and sports overall. It's been my life. I don't know my life any other way than through sports and through hockey. I think what led me to be a coach today, I think the shifted focus on others from being an athlete, that's very self-centered business. You think about yourself every single day. What do I need to eat now? When should I nap? How much should I rest? Am I working out enough? It's that constant self-reflection that you need to go through as an athlete. And I was just so sick of it. I was like, I don't want to think about myself, purely just myself anymore. And what I love about coaching the most is I was able to shift my focus on others. So now when I wake up in the morning, I think about the girls I coach now. I'm like, I wonder how they're doing today. I go on this app that I get them to fill out a wellness screener every day, and I look up how they're doing mentally. How are they feeling physically after yesterday's practice? My focus has completely shifted on others, and it feels pretty good actually, not just being focused on your own performance and how you're doing every day. The relationships with people along the way obviously had a huge impact on where I am today, especially my teammates. It's really truly a special environment to share with other people, different ages, especially on the national team, and everyone with the same, once you share the same goal and working towards the same goal every single day. I think that's something that I've learned the most from as a player, that I'm bringing now to my life as a coach. And I think my teammates help me, and coaches and other people along my career as a player that kind of pushed me towards where I am today, always encouraging me that you can do it, helping me to believe in myself in the times that it wasn't always the easiest thing to do. Also giving back now as a coach, like I said, especially for VH hockey, it's really, really important for me to give back to the community and give back to the hockey world, that I was able to go where I did, and how grateful I am. And if I can somehow help someone to kind of overcome their obstacles as athletes, I think that's one of the greatest feelings of being a coach. And it's not about making it to the Olympics. It's not about shooting for the biggest stages. I think being an athlete every day, it's just so great because you get to challenge yourself mentally and physically to be a better person, to be a better athlete. And I think the giving back part for me is something I think about every day as a coach. I wrote gut feeling. So when I retired from playing hockey, I obviously had education. I had 2 different degrees, and my first thought was, oh, I'm going to do something else than hockey. I can do other things. It was like the Venla that's was in her comfort zone as a player, kind of, and then I think everyone was just expecting me to stay in hockey because they told me that's just who you are, and I wanted to be different and I wanted to do something else, and I applied for jobs. They were all outside of hockey. They had nothing to do with coaching, and here I am coaching. So an opportunity came with the Jets hockey development, and I just went with my gut feeling after having a little break from playing, and obviously started to miss the environment of going to the rink and having a team, not just a hockey team that I played on, but a team of coaches that I could work with, and I wanted to give it a chance, and it really, really pulled me into coaching. And I feel like I get to be myself. I get to go to the environment that I love the most every day, which is really incredible that I get to do this now as my full-time job. My experiences as an athlete, obviously hoping that all other players, if it doesn't come down to going to the Olympics, but just my experiences with my teammates, the dressing room, all the jokes every day, the traveling piece of hockey, getting to see the world, getting to know other people. I think those are the things that I would want any player to experience, no matter what level of hockey it is. It really doesn't matter. That's the heart of hockey for me. And also as a coach, the constant challenge of just dealing with the imperfection of myself, and being able to challenge myself on a daily basis is something I really, really enjoy. And from what Leah said, I wrote down here at the end, go with the flow and grab onto opportunities. That's kind of who I've always been. As much as I've, listened to other people tell me to do something else, in the end, it all comes down to it's your life. You need to do what makes you happy. You need to trail your own way of moving forward in whatever it is, despite of the obstacles on your way. And I've always been the type of person that you find your opportunity and you grab onto it, and then you have to be ready to make some sacrifices, because those opportunities aren't always right in front of your face where you're living. So that's kind of made me bounce around and move to different places in this world. Very simple slide. I thought about this actually for a while, and that's my only answer. I can't really put it in any other way. Why choose sports? It's who I am. I feel like if I was doing something else, especially right now, I don't think I would be true to myself of who I am and what I enjoy doing, and how I can give back the most. So that's my very simple, I think, effective way of saying it. And I think sports kind of chose me. I didn't choose them. It was just that I tried playing, and I instantly just felt so good skating. And I still do, even if I don't play, that I just go on the ice as a coach. As soon as I step on the ice, it's like I can breathe again and I get energetic and I feel like I'm 10 years old and I just like energy is overflowing. And I don't think that's something that you get to experience as much as a 33-year-old, where you get to feel like you're 10 at least for an hour every day. That's why I also love it so much. Okay, here we go. Now more to not so fun part. So barriers along the way. Obviously, I was able to do a lot with hockey. I was very successful, but it just wasn't easy at any point of time. The masculinity of hockey and some other sports, obviously, it's still a fact. As much as we've made huge changes from when I started playing hockey to now, where in my hometown I played with boys till I was a teenager. Now there's girls teams. Now you have the option of uh, if you're more of a shy girl that likes to be with girls, and it's a little bit easier to step on the ice that way. You have that opportunity where back in the day you really didn't. But the position of power, unfortunately, it is reality. It's still, the power is in a lot of men, just because there's so many more men in every organization. There's so many more men in those power positions. And then it all comes down to whose voice is valuable. And probably all females, being in any type of meeting with a lot of men, there's times where you start speaking and then all of a sudden someone talks on top of you. No one comments on what you said. They just kind of shift the focus on someone else. And I'm at the point now where I'm like, I just say my point. If I have to say it 10 times, I say it. Like, I don't care what they think, but I do know what I'm talking about because I've been in those positions as a female. They've never done it. So how do they think that my opinion is invaluable? So that's just something that you need to kind of, it's almost daily, especially in hockey, that I get to go through the same emotions of frustration and trying to prove my point and get my point across. But that's just what it is, and I'm used to it. But again, change is happening, and I think it's definitely towards the better. And it's really exciting to see, especially in the hockey world, that things aren't the same as they used to be 20 years ago. Another barrier that I've seen throughout my playing career, especially now also as a coach, female coach, was the lack of resources. So I played 27 years of hockey, and I played 1 year as a professional, and so that I got a little bit of money from playing. And for the last 10 to 15 years, I spend anywhere from 6 to 8 hours in hockey training, being on the ice, off ice stuff, whatever that included, travel. And I got a little bit of pocket money the last year of my playing career. And sometimes I look back and I'm like, wow, how did I do it? I was financially in stress most of my career. But then somehow you just push through, because what else are you going to do? That's what you've always wanted to do. And I think the love for the game for female players, it really is remarkable, and how much work every female puts into, no matter if it's reporting, no matter if it's playing or training, it doesn't matter what it is. Females just work harder because we need to. And that's something just what we need to be extremely proud of as well. So lack of resources financially, it could have been lack of resources of just the support system for female players. That was always something. I I think more and more now that there's more female coaches, you start to find those female resources, especially from all my teammates that coach now. We have like a support system for each other. You always have someone to call if you have any questions. You always have someone that knows what you're going through, which is extremely important. But that's something definitely that female athletes and in the field of sports are facing, if not daily, at least sometimes. Then societal expectations I wrote down. There's the endless amount of times where I'm playing hockey and I'm enjoying it so much and putting a lot of time into it, and then you have those people walking up to you, why you're still playing, like do something with your life, like when are you going to have kids, when are you going to do this, what's the point of playing, you don't make any money out of it. And those are truly the moments that I don't know what the percentage is for female players, just start to wonder about quitting hockey, because that message is coming from all different directions on a regular basis, and you start to almost believe in it because you hear it so often. So it's that constant reassuring yourself of what I'm doing is fine and it's valuable and I'm good at it. And I think if I let those voices get to me throughout my playing career, or if that same happens now as a coach, I don't think I would have made it where I did if I let those voices affect me. So that's something that men usually don't really understand, what are the messages that we have to hear from others. Then something I talked about already, parental reactions when growing up as a little girl. I was one of the best players always on the boys teams, and then there's the parents being mad about if I take the ice time of their son, and it's the worst thing in the world because how embarrassing is that? And then it all comes down to you, and the parents are mean to you because it's your fault that you're better than than their son. And again, the daily difficulties of looking different or trying to tuck your hair into your jersey, and I even came up with a boy's name for myself when I was little. So I pulled my hat really down deep in my head and I tucked my hair inside my jersey, and I introduced Ville, which is a Finnish boy's name, instead of Venla. So everyone thought that I was a boy. So it was just easier to, face all those things every day of not having to hear that extra stuff from parents or other players. And then road to valuing, you can't expect anyone to respect what you're doing unless you do it yourself. And I think that was the big kind of turning point for me. I don't remember the age when this happened, but I was really training professionally. I knew I took better care of myself than the male players in the same city where I lived. And, I would work out every day really well. I would eat really well. I was living and breathing hockey. And then I started to tell myself, I do everything as professionally as I can. And it's valuable, and no one else has the right to judge what I'm doing and living this way. So I think that for females, kind of as a turning point of being able to value yourself and what you're doing and being confident is a constant struggle. And once you get to that point, you start to enjoy what you're doing a lot more than you did before. Some of these I already kind of mentioned. What has made the most impact on me? Definitely my teammates. That was the best part about hockey. And then I think right now the next generation impact, like I said, when I grew up, I looked up to males. I played with boys. I knew nothing about female hockey. And now if I go on the ice with little young girls or little girls, or even the girls I coach, the U17s, every day, just the impact you can have on their life, it's so remarkable that I can't even imagine if I was in their shoes and I had someone coming to practice that was a female, and kind of walk through that journey that they want to go through as well. And that's something that really motivates me every day. And just seeing females have more and more female role models, whether it is as coaches, as whatever career path they have in sports, it is so remarkable that it's hard to even say it, and something that makes at least myself feel very valuable in what I'm doing every day. Inspiration of other strong female leaders, and then the talent, resiliency, and determination of females within the sporting industry. What Leah said too, what everyone probably got from it is, you fall and then you fall again and then you fall again and then there's another disappointment and then boom, something happens. And it's kind of been the same journey for myself. You just have to keep going, because eventually if you keep going, you're going to make it where you want to go. That's what I think, and that's something we have to, as females, be really proud of, that how resilient, how talented and determined we are to do what we want to do. Something that's on a lighter note, like I said, sports are changing. Female leaders are needed. Coaching is very different now than what it used to be. All about the individual, about their mental health, how to lead a proper way. It's all about humanity, empathy, understanding how they're feeling. It's not about, going to practice and yelling at a young child. So I think females have a step ahead in this. I think we naturally lead the way that sports are kind of getting into, and at least for myself too, I noticed that more and more men ask questions from me as a coach. It's like, well, how would you approach this? How would you do this? And especially coaching females, which is a little bit different than males, but I do think we have a step ahead in sports when it comes to empathy and humanity, and especially because we've gone down that road and understand how hard it is. I think we have better understanding of how to lead and how to coach the proper way, and also step ahead in work ethic and love for the game, that it's not just about money. As much as I would love all female players to be professionals, that's not the ending of it. That's not why females play the game or stay within sports. Then I recently came back from a road trip. I was on the bus and I found this Brené Brown. She's a professor from Texas, and she has this Dare to Lead podcast with Abby Wambach, who was a legend in the U.S. Soccer team. And then I listened to it on the way back home, and it was really, really good podcast. And please write that down. I really hope all of you get a chance to listen to it. And Abby was talking about leadership in sports and in soccer, what she's learned so far. And this is what I noticed too, is now as females in the sports industry, a lot of females kind of fall down to the hole of trying to change themselves, or of being a different type of leader, trying to be a man, trying to be more manly, or whatever that looks like. And she said that she's had the most success just being herself. And it sounds simple, but when you start thinking about it, especially when you go to work and you're surrounded by 90% men, and you try and fit into the conversations, you try and fit into talking about this or that, and then in the end it's like, that's exhausting. Just be yourself, because you know everything as well as they do. And I think too, the ignorance of female sports is something you notice too, is everyone talks about the NHL, and then why don't you throw in the mix of a play from, I don't know, 1998 from female hockey, drop down a name where all the guys look at you and they're like, who's that? Because they expect you to know every single player on the men's side since I don't even know what year. But sometimes it's great educating them too about the female game, and if I'm supposed to know all these names from the game, then I think it works. I think it works both ways, and I think this podcast was really interesting when it talked about how to lead and how to lead your way and not trying to follow, someone else's footsteps directly, because it becomes really exhausting. And then Brené also said courage is contagious. Every time we choose courage, we make everyone around us a little better and the world is a little braver. And I think it's a really cool quote. It takes, It takes a lot of courage for us to show up every day and be ourselves, and then once we were able to do it, I think it does make everyone else's life better, and it gives courage to other females in sports to just keep doing what they're doing. That's a line that I've followed now for a few years. I actually found that line in Abu Dhabi. It was carved to like a side of the road, and I thought it really describes sports as well as it does. The road to excellence knows no finish line. It really is a constant battle every day to try and be excellent, which I feel like I'm never going to get to that point. And I posted a picture here that I loved from the puck drop that I got to do last year at a Jets game with Sarah Orleski and Norva and Sammy Joe Small. And being part of that puck drop, being part of that female group for 2 days and being a rookie, I was so lucky. It was so fun to learn from them and see how far they've come, and just for myself to finding kind of 3 new role models that have been paving the way, and hearing their experiences was huge for me moving forward. That's everything. Thank you so much for having me.
Great. Thank you so much, Venla, there. We do have a couple open questions and we are running low on time here, so we'll go through those quickly and then leave it at that for the day. So it has been noticed that as a society, we do hire women because of an established mandate sometimes, or are we hiring women and also men for the matter of merit rather than in their qualifications? So should we be hiring based on skill or give women opportunities, or should we just take those opportunities?
Well, I can take a stab at that first. And I understand what's being said, and I don't think any woman wants to feel like they're being hired just because of their gender. But the fact of the matter, and Venla mentioned it already, is that our highest levels, our CEOs, they are still 99.9% men. And the fact of the matter is, when you look at my situation, for instance, being the first woman to call on national television in the NHL, I'm not Bob Cole. I'm not Jim Houston. I'm not as good as them, but nor can I be unless I get the opportunity. And the only way to get the opportunity is to get repetition. So they have to open the door for me. Maybe I'm not the best yet, but if I'm ever going to get better, if I am not presented with the opportunity to do so, then how is it ever going to change? So I think with the fact that we're not represented in certain roles that we have not traditionally occupied, the woman might not be, say, the most experienced head coach, but if she never gets that opportunity to come in and to learn and to practice, we're never going to get anywhere. So I do think that we do still have to look at, do we have diversity? And it's not just with women, it's also with people of color. And to make sure that the more voices we have on the table, around the table, are better.
I agree. And then the snowball effect from that, if let's say Leah gets the chance, look at the eyes of however many females that have always dreamed about being in that role. If they, it's all a snowball effect. Once you see a female in that role, it becomes real. Before that happens, for a lot of girls, they don't know what they're working towards. They just think, okay, I might want to go another direction because I'm never going to get there. It's not possible.
Great. So when someone is wanting to start a career in sport, but maybe isn't sure which, and this is definitely applicable for a lot of young women, what advice would you give to someone regarding that uncertainty and kind of trying to figure out what it is that's best for them?
Well, I think one great thing there, Leah mentioned before, was your network. I would probably go through the list of people you know. Maybe there is someone within the field you want to work in that works in sports already. Or maybe you just find that network, work hard to find those names down that you can connect with and find out if there's an opportunity, even just to volunteer to start. And start creating those experiences and find that way if that is the right route for yourself.
Yeah, just to add on to that, Jesse, I just think you got to get into it. You know, the fact is you're going to learn by being in it and immersing yourself in it, what stands out to you, what you're going to end up loving, what you're going to have passion about, and then the direction will start to make a clear path. And I think that's the best way to do it. I mean, like I said, it took me until I was 40 to start calling play-by-play, and it was from different situations that occurred in my life. But my love has always been the game. My love has always been a broadcaster. I talk too much. So there you go. So I just think you get into it and things are going to present themselves to you. And then to Venla's, then you start utilizing network and you build, and things are just going to unfold for you as long as you're willing to make it about the work.
Great. I think I'm in the wrong field here. Maybe I should have. And lastly, what advice would you give to someone, whether it be in coaching or in the career that you're in now too, Leah, that you wish that you had gotten when you started?
Venla, do you have something for this? Are you going to bail me out here?
Oh, I'm trying to think here how to put the words together. I was kind of expecting for you to go first as a more experienced.
Oh, okay.
Guess
I'll go first because I'm the elder statesman of the group here. The advice that I wish I had got, you know, that's a really tough one because I just, you know, honestly, I don't know if I have an answer for it. And maybe that's the best advice I can give, is that you don't have to have the answers for everything. You don't have to know everything. You're going to learn. That's what life is about. You're going to have your experiences and you will continue to climb. But, you know, I didn't get this advice, but for me, it's just what I just said, is that if you make it about the work and you're willing to work and always be prepared and go after it, you know, things are going to work out for you in the end. But that's a great question. Maybe one day I'll have an answer for it. I'll have to think about it. Sorry, Venla, I didn't really help.
That was a great answer. I also thought about the work and what I kind of discussed too. The work brings the confidence. You can't expect things to just happen for you. If you're kind of doing this, kind of doing that, throw yourself in it 100%. You're going to build confidence through that. Don't listen to people that aren't encouraging. They're wrong. And just keep going.
Excellent. Thank you, ladies, so much for joining us. Thank you to everyone for coming on today. And we will see you next week for sessions 4 and 5.